And we've realized that how much ever you can make, you can always give. It never makes you poorer. It only makes you richer.
He reached 33 and called me one fine day and said, "I'm done." I was like, "And that means I'm done. I want to do something different." And I remember saying, yes. But if you leave tomorrow morning, and I was pregnant, I said, "We cannot even afford the rent on this house we're living in, Amit."
You do know how rare this philosophy is. People aspire for it, but most are struggling in what is that point of enough?
It's very easy to define what is enough. The problem is we never ask ourselves this question.
Hello, I'm Naghma Mulla and welcome to Give It a Go, a podcast where we step into the world of giving. In this episode, we are joined by Amit and Archana Chandra, two changemakers who brought heart and structure to giving in India. Amit Chandra is the managing trustee of the ATE Chandra Foundation and has had a long-standing career in private equity. Archana Chandra is the CEO of the Jai Vakil Foundation and has spent over a decade working alongside individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Let's get into a conversation with them on all that philanthropy is and can be. Hello, Archana. Hello, Amit. I'm so happy to be having this conversation with you. Before we even begin, I want to tell you that one of the first few beacons for me when I entered the development sector more than a decade ago was watching both of you. Just learning from how you chose to learn from your journey. And there are many out there who have a similar story to tell. So it's very gratifying to start this with both of you. So welcome.
Thank you for saying that, and thank you for inviting us on the show.
Thank you. I mean, I really want to get down to the beginning of the beginning. You've been such a successful business person, Bain Capital. There was a legend surrounding you in your workspace anyways. You've been in the media industry, very cutthroat, very different, where actually stories are built out of nothing. And in that entire environment, when you were in the thick of competition and what we call the dog eats dog world, what was your relationship with money like? Like, what did you think about? What was rich for you? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think for us, our relationship with money has grown organically along with our careers. Virtually from the month we got married, which is 31 years ago, we started our philanthropic journey. So, at that point of time, we obviously didn't have much to give. I think together we were making 17,000 rupees a month, and we were staying as paying guests, not very far away from here. But still, we were writing scholarships because we realized that we were what we were because of the generosity of others. And so, this has been a part of our ethos, and it's only grown along the way. And we've realized that, how much ever you can make, you can always give. And giving is as much about getting, because it never makes you poorer. It only makes you richer.
That's so beautiful. And while he thought of it like this, what was your response? Because it is like 17,000 at that time, maybe was good compared to a lot of what other people were making. But it's also, I have seen too many people who are still thinking there is a little more I have to earn before I start giving. There is so what were you thinking at that time? Like, that's 31 years ago, a long time ago.
I think, truth be told, we were very young when we got married. I was 22, he was 25. So while we knew we needed a roof over our head, food on the table, I at least wasn't thinking, oh, philanthropy karna chahiye, ye karna chahiye, wo karna chahiye. it wasn't that profound. It was actually really simple. We make this much. Some of it we should give. And let's just give to people we know, causes we know, and keep it simple. It actually started with just, something that you grew up with, watching, doing. And like he said, he benefited a lot from the scholarships. For me, there wasn't even that lens. I had lived a simple life, but hadn't really wanted for anything. So, all of this that we talk about now in terms of structured giving and all, it wasn't that complicated at that time. I think it was just simple to say, some part of what we make, we should share.
Yeah.
So I think that's really how it started.
That's a lot of consciousness in your relationship with money. That's a lot of empathy towards people around you as well. Is there something in your early life or some experiences that were very pivotal in how you thought about it or you thought about it?
The simple answer for me is no, Naghma. Like I said, we grew up, or rather, I'm an only child. So in my family, all of us grew up not really wanting for anything, but at the same time, not having anything surplus, right? Designer, luxury was not even on the table as a conversation. You didn't even know about that whole world. And you saw people doing things in their own way, in their own shape or form. You went to the temple, you saw, the food being distributed. You were part of it in different shapes and forms. And my grandmom actually used to say, neki kar or kuein mein dal. So it never came back on the table in any form as a conversation. It was just something that you did and you got on with it. So I think we just kind of
I think that is very pivotal,
me.
Because what you just shared is a very profound lesson. It's part of your life, and it's not even something that's made a headline continuously, but it's just part of the way living was in your family.
Yeah, so when, he said, I've been a beneficiary of scholarships and therefore I'd like to do more of it. I was like, absolutely, right? There was nothing new, so to speak, for me. At the same time, I'm very happy to go along with that. I don't think there was that much thought from my side.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, I grew up in Mumbai, which was very different from what it is today. I think today we do live in islands. I think the top 1% have managed to build walls around them, and the middle class stay separately, and then those obviously in slums are completely islanded off.
Yeah.
I think when I grew up in the Mumbai I grew up in, actually you were exposed to everything at the same time.
Yes.
I grew up in a very middle class family, but there was extreme wealth right around me, and there was extreme poverty right around me. I had to look outside my balcony and I could see, huts, and I had friends in those huts, and I used to play with them. And I had some of India's household names in terms of celebrities who stayed in my society. And so I was literally exposed to every strata of society growing up. The biggest realization I had growing up is that absolute wealth and absolute power can corrupt absolutely, and can destroy families. And I saw that with multiple families. And I had the great privilege of a great upbringing in terms of investment in education and values. And I'm deeply grateful for that. We had no spare money to spare for great vacations or anything that, children in wealthy families today would crave for. But I'm so grateful that I got what I got growing up as a child. And I think all of that, when I started working, and then when Archana and I got married, I think those lessons really stayed with me. That there is great value to what money can do and great disservice to what money and power can do.
Yes, yes, that's a brilliant insight. And as you started climbing up the corporate ladder, for you, were there markers beyond what hit the bank account? What were your markers of success for you? Because you're talking about a very eclectic surrounding. There are many folks whose markers are okay, but the next big car and the next big flat and the bigger, the better, the larger. What for you were markers that were beyond the financials?
I think the first marker was a car that if you stop, would start, and it started, would stop. That was our first marker.
That's what she wanted, because when we got married, the first car would not start and stop.
But she wanted it too.
I needed times to be pushed up, pedal on. So particularly in monsoons, it caused a great distress. But I mean, jokes apart. Actually, our goals were very simple, and they were different. When I came back to India in 1993-94, I actually had a very simple goal, and I've never talked about it till much later in life. My goal was to run a large size or a medium to large size company by the time I hit 40, and to be a crorepati. Okay, being a crorepati in 1990 was a big deal.
But a very big
Everyone
deal.
spoke about, Confident crorepati started much later, but I had those two goals.
Yeah.
So I measured professional success by if I could become a CEO by the time I was 40, and I measured financial success on that parameter. For Archana, it was that we have a permanent roof over our head. Unfortunately, that got realized much later. The first goal got realized, I think, by the time I was 32 or 33. I was running TSP, which was the largest investment bank of its time. So that goal we hit quite early, much earlier than target. So we were really fortunate. We realized that goal. Yeah.
We started from paying guest. Then, as material success and financial success came in, we were able to rent a one-room house. And then every 2 years, he would get a promotion. So the HRA at that time would increase. So we would get a two-bedroom house. So this was going on till he reached 33 and called me one fine day and said, "I'm done." I was like, and that means I'm done. I want to do something different. Whatever. And he had his set of reasons, which were completely valid. And I remember saying, yes. But if you leave tomorrow morning, and I was pregnant, I said, we cannot even afford the rent on this house we're living in, Amit. So can we get a house before you do that? And I think that for me was one of the only things that I have put down, between us saying, yes, we can all do what we want with our time, with our, how we choose to spend it. But we need a roof over our house because we cannot be starting a family without that.
Yeah.
And again, truth be told, he answered and said, all right, absolutely yes. So that's actually been our relationship with money, right? Which is like, absolutely yes. But there's X amount in the bank, whatever, 100 rupees in the bank. You can use all of the 100 to get the house that you want. But I will not take a loan because I want to sleep peacefully at night. And I was like, fair, right? And so with whatever was in the bank, we bought a house. Didn't have the money to even furnish it, but we were so excited. And I think that's when his career path also kind of pivoted into what he's doing now. But yeah, it was actually quite simple like that.
Yeah. And how scary was it too, or it wasn't? Because it is. I mean, you are pregnant. It is an early time. You're changing the course of...
More scary for her.
I think the scare for
Men
me
don't
was...
think.
Yeah. The scare for me was roof over the head.
Yeah.
The scare for me wasn't, what do you want to do next? Yeah.
And sure, I mean, we will not deny ourselves anything if we really want to do it tomorrow morning, but our joy comes from doing other things, be it an experience or be it work in the at the foundation. And so that actually, in many ways, is very liberating, because otherwise, if you have if you have expensive tastes, then you're on a treadmill,
Yes.
and then you have to generate. You have to feed the beast.
Also,
We've never needed to feed the beast.
Yes. And also, if you're playing to the gallery, then that habit becomes very painful.
Then that habit becomes very painful. Anything, if you have, whether it's clothes or it's jewelry or it's holidays or it's whatever it is in life, houses, anything. If you basically decide at some point of time, this is what I really need, as opposed to this is what I need because somebody else thinks I should live this way, you can live your life quite nicely.
So, but you do know how rare this philosophy is. People aspire for it, but most are struggling in what is that point of enough? When is it comfortable enough to start looking beyond your inner circle, your own needs, requirements, and then look at what more people need? How do you navigate that journey for you?
Yeah. So, Naghma, I think it depends on a few things. One is it depends on your inspirations, and I think it depends on the company you keep as well. In our case, for example, a big inspiration for us has been, Guru Nanak. You find his painting just behind where we are sitting. His inspiration to us has been Kirat Kar Vanchak, which is whatever you earn after working hard, give it away generously. And that's a philosophy we've imbibed in our life for many decades now. And then there's another term in Sikh teachings, which is called Sangat, which is the company you keep. And for us, the company we keep is quite broad. It is, it's not just from the world of business, but it's world of social work, doctors, or entrepreneurs. And so we've not necessarily just tried to gauge ourselves by the size of the house we buy or the type of cars we drive, etc. But for us, it's been a more holistic way of looking at what we can do with our time and with our life.
Yeah. And has it been the same with you? So has it been like both of you moving in the same speed, or okay, this is enough or not? Or has that again been a journey that you navigated?
So a dear friend, Abhay, shared this book with Amit called The Billionaire Who Wasn't. It was a story of Chuck Feeney and how he made so much money, and then how he gave it all away anonymously. I'm going to move it back to Amit to share the details of it. But I think a book like that, as well as another book that we read called The Power of Half, where a family mindfully downsizes the house they live in, as well as their living expenses, puts aside that pool, and then talks about how they're going to give it away. So these are some of the conversations that were actually finding their way into our dining table conversations. And I think when Amit left Merrill Lynch, there was a sizable amount that showed up on the table as his, I don't know what is the word,
non-compete.
So, it kind of made us think about, if we had these kind of sums to give away, what would that look like? And I think in order to do that, the first step was defining what is enough for us. And for Amit, I think that definition was very easy to come by, because even today, and even way back then, Amit his wardrobe is a single cupboard. So whether it is casual wear, whether it is wedding wear, whether it is winter wear, it is all in a single cupboard. And every time you buy him something, one item gets removed. So there's never a problem of space, right? I'm not there yet. So for me, arriving at what was enough was a little bit more of a lengthy process. And I think full marks to Amit, because he was like, all right, let's talk about, what is important to you. And I was like, the house was done. So then it was about, healthcare. It was about the education fund for our child. It was about money for our parent. So he was like, fine. And, we got in our money manager to do this Excel spreadsheet with us. And whatever it is that was an area of concern for me, we put on that. And again, truth be told, Naghma, like I said, I'd grown up not wanting for anything, but hadn't seen luxury that we could now access, right? So whether it was travel to another country just for an experience or buy a piece of jewelry, I didn't want to find myself wanting it, but feeling guilty for wanting it. And I didn't want to find myself denying it. So how do you strike that balance was important for me. And I think I put it out on the table. I said, I do want that piece of jewelry. I do want, to travel and go get a meal that, sounds exorbitant. So all of that we kind of factored in. And Amit doubled that amount that showed up on the spreadsheet. He moved it to my account. And thereafter, I am so comfortable because my what is enough has been defined. So that, we now joke that Amit only works for the taxman and the not-for-profit, but that is really the truth. And arriving at it was a journey, especially for me. And I have to give Amit full marks for supporting me in that journey to make sure I was as comfortable.
This is so moving to hear as well, because this is what you both have shared is coming from, beliefs, philosophies, wanting to sync in with each other and plan intelligently for something that needs to be done. Because we do, like, we have had so many conversations with folks who want to do it, but think that practically, how will it ever happen? So thank you for sharing it. This is very, very wonderful, especially because the time that you're talking about, I have vivid memories of growing up in that time also, from austerity to, thinking that good education will get us opportunities to suddenly the world opening up and India seeing more wealth than we had ever imagined. It is a very heady time to be, seeing more zeros in your account than we thought was ever possible. And in that environment, to sit back and say, enough of this, and we want to do this is remarkable. So thank you for sharing the way this happened. And in that time, you have, right, again, I've always heard you talk about Shakti and that impact of that book. So maybe you want to elaborate some on that.
No, I mean, it was like serendipity. I mean, Abhay Havaldar used to run General Atlantic, which was essentially an institution seeded by Chuck's wealth. And Chuck is a man whose work in some ways is all of us are familiar with because he started duty-free stores. All of us have visited a duty-free store multiple times in our life. And he made about $8 billion of wealth in his lifetime. And then one fine day decided when he was, around our age, in his early 50s, to give away all of it. And he, left a modest sum for each of his kids. And he and his wife, Helga, moved into a rented house in San Francisco. He put all of it into a philanthropic organization called General Atlantic Philanthropies. And importantly, coined the firm Giving While Living, where he decided that money must be given away while
he was
alive.
Wow.
And, it was all being given away anonymously. It came into the public domain mainly because of a tax dispute. And so the book got written. And when the book got written, Abhay knew us well. And so he sent it to me and said, "You'll love this book." And I read that book and I said, wow, this is truly incredible. And if he can do this, I think, we can. And so I discussed with Archana, and that's when we did this exercise. And, it actually helped us frame everything that we do today.
Yes.
So the spiritual influence for us was Guru Nanak. And I would say the way we do what we do is came from Chuck Feeney. And, it is truly remarkable what that man has done in his life. He passed away last year. We got to know him a little bit. We got to know his work a lot, and we were a part of the celebration of his giving away of his last dollar.
Beautiful.
It's. I think he's probably the most remarkable philanthropist of our generation.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. While this whole journey was going on, Archana, you found Jai Vakil, and Jai Vakil found you.
I think that would be safer to say Jai Vakil found me.
Yes. How was that? How did that happen?
So, Naghma, like you said, I did spend my initial years in the corporate world with the Times of India group. I then went on to work with a US-based database company. And then a series of events were happening in our personal space, including trying to start our family, which was hard. Informix at that time got bought over by IBM in the US, so they decided to wind down their India operations. And so I actually found myself probably at the darkest point in my life because everything that was going on was hard. I was jobless. We were struggling to have a child, went through a whole series of miscarriages, even had a stillborn. So life was hard. And I was really asking myself this question of why me?
Dad passed away.
My dad passed away, and I'm a single child. So it was all together. And I was asking myself this question, why me? What is the purpose of my life? What's really going on? And it was at that time that I found my spiritual school, which is pranic healing. And I think that healed me physically, mentally, emotionally, and also saved me in terms of what is the answer to this question, right? In terms of how to look for these answers. So we decided that I will not go back to the corporate world. And I think, again, the earlier conversation on what is enough gave me the ability to actually say, it's not the financial part that I'm going to solve for by going back to work, but what else? Something else. And that's how I found myself at Akansha first. Spent 2 years there. Shaheen is a huge inspiration. And then a very dear friend asked me to come to Jai Vakil, which is the oldest and largest institute for children and adults with intellectual disability. And I remember in my head listening to my friend, but not wanting to go there because I was like, I don't understand this space. What am I going to say to them? How am I even going to interact with them? So I didn't want to go. But my friend literally put me in her car and brought me to Jai Vakil. I walked to the campus, met the kids, received this unconditional love, saw this magical energy of joy and happiness. So my heart got engaged, went back to look for data because I was like, I'm fairly well educated, experienced, traveled. Why am I not seeing these children anywhere in the public spaces that I go to? Mall, wedding, shadi, dinner. I don't see them anywhere. So went back to look for data. Naghma couldn't find the data.
My God.
And when we finally did find some data, it said nearly 2%, which means 1 in 50 have intellectual disability. So that's how my head got engaged. And with my head and my heart now both being engaged, I stayed. It's been over 15 years. Learned everything from Mrs. Shroff, who was part of the founding family. And then when she passed in 2013 is when I took on the leadership role. So I think it's fair to say Jai Vakil found me as opposed to the other way around. But it's truly a blessing to be able to find or have some place that, makes your heart sing on a daily basis.
Absolutely. It's so beautiful. What is very evident when we speak to both of you is that how you are so aligned in terms of values, in terms of how you think about giving, about what is enough, like the fundamentals which we struggle with. But in how you're doing it, you both have charted your own paths. And that's very remarkable.
You have hit the nail on the head because you should come to some of our board meetings because in the same situation, Amit and I will guaranteed come at it from different ends. And that actually makes not just our board meetings, but our conversations at home with our child, with everything that we do so much fun definitely so much richer.
Yeah.
And I think just inherently
maybe a little more adventurous also.
Yeah. And the team's job not easier.
yes.
Because this is clearly not, where we keep slotting things into the head and the heart. Both of you have thought from both these spaces.
Naghma, our what is aligned. The how is not aligned.
And one of the hows that is not aligned is how you choose to speak of it.
Of course.
And in the more than a decade since you built, and Amit, I go back to the first time I met you with Vidya. And I was hearing you, and I was very new myself. So who was I to even think whether this was good or bad? But thinking, my God, how many things does this, does Amit want to do? And you were so excited and you really want to do it. And it was remarkable. And over that time, there's been the way you do it has been more measured, and that's coming from experience. So when I say people have to burn their money to learn how to use their money, you've kind of done it. But the second thing that stands out is how you have amplified your voice and chosen to speak of some things consistently. And that is deliberate, I think.
Yeah, there is some method to the madness. But I say this often, that I think sometimes we get a little bit extra credit for being visionaries in the areas that we work in. I think that's not deserved.
Because if you look at the work we do, my own style is more to look at patterns that emerge out of things that are going right and wrong. And I think my bigger skill is to be unafraid to make mistakes and to recognize what is going right. And after seeing something go right, I'm actually happier to double down on it and take the hit from what has gone wrong. And so if you look at it, on my scorecard, just in cricket parlance, if you look at lots of India's best, batsmen, they'll have a lot of zeros, but they'll have a good average.
Yeah, so that's all. Yeah. And you also, I've seen over years, you've always done more than you've spoken. You've always been more hesitant about how you speak of it. And there has been a hesitation. And many times I've heard, I wish, more people knew of Archana's journey. But that also is deliberate. Your silence is also deliberate and your actions are also deliberate. So how do you come at it?
So if I had my way, Naghma, I would live my life as a wallflower. Okay? I kid you not. And actually, Vidya is responsible for enabling me to at least sit on this couch and talk as much. So I had this challenge a long time ago where I didn't want to speak up. I just wanted to put my head down and keep working. And that gave me joy. And we actually reached a point in Jaivakil where it was time to speak up. Otherwise, the organization was beginning to suffer. And I had reached out to Vidya to say, now what? How? And she was very gracious to actually get me to meet a lady in your organization, Priya, who said this to me so beautifully, where she said, there is Archana, the individual, who has her likes and dislikes and comforts and preferences. And then there is the CEO of an organization who has a role to play and a job to do. And while I respect your choices and preferences, you're doing a disservice to the organization. And therefore, you, Archana, have to choose what you'd like to do going forward. And she sent me home with that thought. And when I came back and I said, I love the organization enough to want to do something, in that role, she said, now you're talking, let's get down to business in terms of how do you speak, but you speak in a way that is true and authentic to you and not necessarily, how somebody else does it. And I think that's how I'm sitting on this couch and really able to even talk about this because like I said, my, upbringing was to say, do whatever you're doing, but kind of not talk about it, put it in the well, so to speak. So when Amit started talking and about sharing this journey, I was like, more power to you, right? You do you, more power to you.
Now, you have been putting yourselves out as a couple in some shape or form. You've been talking a lot about it. But if you had to deliberately say something to a lot of young people who are coming into wealth, we're also going to see the largest wealth transfer to the other generation. And we still are grappling with the enough of it. Do I have enough information, enough wealth, enough understanding to be able to give? If there was a deliberate message both of you wanted to give to these young people of fairly reasonable influence, what would it look like?
Look, I would say that it's really interesting if we decide to be thoughtful about this question. It's very easy to define what is enough. The problem is we never ask ourselves this question. As a consequence of which we land up living life on a treadmill. So I think one of the most important thing any individual should do, is define what kind of living standard they ultimately want to do. And I'm not trying to be prescriptive to say you need to live in a 3-bedroom house or a 2-bedroom house or a 4-bedroom house or whatever. But if you at some point of time set a target for yourself and get to that target and say that now I've got to this target, and having got to this target, I will start doing something else with the rest of it and not, be in this mindless consumption race. I think that can be very, very liberating. Also, if I already have that kind of wealth and I'm then, the excess of it, I am going to use it in a way in which it is useful to address issues that exist in society around me, then I think that can also be very liberating, because often I think people don't ask that question as well. And people have so much of excess wealth. And so it just keeps going through this intergenerational transfer where problems are essentially increasing. And we think we are caring for our next generation by giving them wealth. But are we actually transferring a good society for them to, live in?
Yeah.
We are not. So we have to, at the end of the day, also create a robust environment for them, right? And for that, we have to invest, just like we are giving them money, we have to give them an enabling environment as well. So I think we have to think about both those things.
Absolutely. And what about you? And when you share your learnings or your experiences with your daughter, because she is your next generation, how much of it do you expressly, express to her, and how much of you is just about bringing her into the fold and having her see it? Because there is a huge parental responsibility also that we all carry.
Sure. So I'm going to answer your previous question first, Naghma, because Amit very beautifully put it out, right? You define what's enough and then you move on. It's not as simple, or it wasn't as simple for me, right? So while we defined what was enough and we'd gone through the process and it was in my account, when I was working at Jai Vakil, I chose to do it in a voluntary capacity. But every month, the fact that my bank balance wasn't moving would trouble me. Because somewhere in my head, I was equating self-worth to your income or your salary check. And I kept going to him and saying, I am not making any money. I am like this. I am like that. What is the value of what I'm putting on the table? How much do you think I will get if I do this? And it troubled me, I think, for nearly a year. After people have defined what is enough, how do you choose where to put, whether it's your time, whether it's your energy, whether it's your resources, financial or otherwise? How do you choose where to put it? And I think making a journey out of that is equally important. One that has to put a spring in your step. It has to make your heart sing. And that's why we tell anybody and everybody that, just because water or agriculture is making his heart sing and something else, like maybe intellectual disability is what speaks to me. Each one has to find what is it that your heart connects with, what is it that you resonate with, right? And again, we're spoiled for choice in that space because there's so many options, there's so many things that need attention. So pick one, pick two, pick three, but pick one that is true to you is what I would, kind of also put out.
Absolutely. No, that is important. I was going to ask both of you again that the how of it, and the how of it is the messy, the struggle. The struggle is in the how, right? Because intention to action is everything. So what you're telling me is to basically pick three that resonate most with you.
No,
but how does that one do that also?
No, Naghma, and that pick. Sorry,
No,
I don't mean no.
ahead.
I mean, and that three can evolve.
Yeah.
So when we started, we would give to people or causes that we knew. And then at some point, the pool increased, and then we were like, okay, do we want to be more mindful about it? And I remember Amit coming and saying, there are so many people focusing on education. Because when we started, we both believed that education was going to be, the single largest contributor to changing how we do things.
Yes.
And then after a couple of, and so we put all of ourselves in that. And then a couple of years later, we came to the table and said, there's so many people focusing on education. Is there something else that we should now look at? And that's how what we looked at over the years has also evolved. And today it is water, agriculture, or capacity building. I'm not sure what the answer is 5 years down the line.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Hopefully it remains the same.
No, hopefully we're redundant, right? Our goal is that what we do today should not be needed tomorrow.
Yes.
That is one of our key objectives. We don't want to be relevant in 10 or 15 years. In water, at least we are now been doing it for 12 years. We're very clear we don't want to be doing what we're doing in at least another 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
So agriculture, we've just begun in the last few years. So it'll take longer, I suspect.
So thank you for sharing the way this happened. And in that time, you have, right? Again, I've always heard you talk about Shakti and that impact of that book. So maybe you want to elaborate.
Yeah. We wanted to build an institute that would outlive an individual. How do you do that without capacity building? Because CSR bill came out in 2014. Everybody wanted to support programs.
Yeah.
How do you do capacity building? So, and when this issue came up on our table at the foundation, it was like, if I'm struggling, I'm sure there are so many more who are struggling. So what can we do about it as a foundation?
Yeah.
Because we believe that, unless you build an organization or strengthen an institute, how are you going to continue doing what you're doing? So Amit says this really well, where, the corporate world had so many IITs, IIMs who were kind of, helping create that support structure. So how about creating one over here for capacity building? So I think that's really how our journey has also been in terms of identifying what is the need, what is it that we can do about it. And, Amit is a king at generating huge support around a cause or a space. And if you see Ashoka University is such a great example of that, as is the SRCC Children's Hospital. So it doesn't only have to be about your resources or your time. It is also how do you use your networks or art of persuasion to get more people to kind of, come together to build larger and bigger institutes.
Beautiful. How do you see this journey proceed? What I already heard is that every few years you hope what you're doing becomes redundant. That's the seriousness with which you are going after this.
Yeah.
And in your ecosystem, how do you keep yourself open to new? Like, there are so many new things happening, even in terms of solutions. What becomes your filter then?
Yeah. So, look, for us, our vision is to drive transformation at scale in the areas that we choose to focus on. And we have two verticals, as Archana pointed out. Water and agriculture is one, and capacity building is the other. In water, we run a very large movement across the country, and we think we are just about gathering momentum after a decade of work. So it's taken us a decade of work to get to this point. I hopefully feel that in another decade, our work will be done. So it takes 2 decades to really we've realized get to the point of redundancy. In agriculture, I think we're just about getting started. We are going to make our first big bet, hopefully in the next few weeks.
Beautiful.
And it's a much more complicated problem. There are, a few 100 million people in this country who live in, poverty, close to poverty, because of agri income being much lower than what it should be. And so we are hopeful that we can at least work with people who are trying to build templates for sustainable change, where this gap can be narrowed in a meaningful way over the coming decade or 2 decades. That journey has just begun.
Yes.
And we want to be a key part of of making sure that we make a serious dent in that problem statement, and we accelerate how quickly we can get at it. And so it's a very exciting problem to try to solve, and it keeps us up at night. It keeps us energized. Capacity building, I think, is an area we've made a lot of progress on. I feel very good. I think we had the benefit of all of Archana's wisdom as a practitioner, which helped us seed a lot of things. And I think now many more players are coming into it. So I think we'll probably we are transitioning some of the things that we were doing. We're doing less of some of the earlier things and doubling down on some of the areas which require more focus on. And we are focusing more on advocacy, so that both donors as well as NGOs realize that this is something that should come naturally to them.
And how do we include our young children in this conversation? This is something that we cannot not have in this.
Yes.
How do you do it? Do we have sit down conversations and talking to them about what, or how do you give those subtle messages that kind of bring them into this fold, just like I think both of you have had for yourselves?
So for me, I don't remember mindfully thinking about this where our daughter Anika is concerned, but it's just that, this is dinner table conversation. What are you doing? How was your day? What did you do? What are you thinking? How are you thinking? Is your dinner table conversation. So I think Anika's just heard them since forever. I do remember telling her this when she was a little older, where, sometimes Amit would say, so what do you want to do when you grow up? And she would say, I want to be like mama. Where it was like, I want to, kind of help the world, and I want to make no money and all of that. And I was like, where did this come from? Right. And then I remember telling her, I said, look, my parents used to tell me this, that you need to be able to do everything and look after yourself. So whether that means you can cook for yourself, you can drive, you can earn your money, you have to be independent. And you need to have all the skills that go towards being that person. Tomorrow, what life throws at you, we don't know. But then you can choose how I'm going to spend my time and how I'm going to use my skills. So I told her, I said, I can cook, I can drive, I can earn my living. I choose to do something differently. So I think that expectation reset had to be done for her, because she used to go around thinking, I'm just going to be this little happy camper in the social service space, a social sector space. So that I remember setting out mindfully. But the other one was this book in which Amit wrote her a letter, which was beautiful. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think when she was 7 or 8 years
very
old,
little. She didn't understand it.
Sudha Menon, I think, came up with this book, Letters from Fathers to Daughters. And I think a whole bunch of us wrote letters to our daughters. Anika was too young at that time, but she, I think, read it a few years later. And in that book, I actually summarized my philosophy, our philosophy actually towards money for her, because, and also values. It was actually a holistic letter, because Sudha's brief to us was, you should talk to your daughter about what the book I think was called Legacy. So what legacy you want to leave for her, and what values you want to transmit to her, etc. So the brief was quite clear. So basically, we in that book let her know that at the end of the day, most of the wealth that we have generated is basically has been willed away to society, and that doesn't mean that she won't get a house, and she'll get a house, and she'll get educated, and God forbid there's a medical need, that'll get taken care of. But essentially, if she does a Google search and she finds out that we made money, she should be aware that, because kids, even that age, I remember she would come back one day and say, this person, the bus told me that you made so much money, and that person said, so we told her that none of that is coming to you. Yeah. So we put all that in the letter. So it's really interesting because she read that letter a few years after it got published. And then she read it again recently, only a few years ago. So she has great clarity that, where the wealth is coming and where it's going. And I really feel proud of her because she's a very sorted kid. And she's been working from her first year in undergrad. I started working in my third year of undergrad, and supporting myself. And she started working very early on. She worked, as a parent, sometimes you say, oh God, it's really early. Why is she doing this?
Yeah.
But, she cut short her holiday and she went and she earned that money, and it gave her flexibility to do things. Mother didn't like it because it meant she could take some holidays without asking for mom's permission. But, and then again, this summer, half the summer she's working. She's in Bangalore at working, doing an AI, internship. And so, half the summer she's, between her second and third year, she's working. So, so she has this thing in her to be independent and to earn her own money at an early age. And, and I look at all that, and, she's not doing that, I think, only to build a CV or something. She has this sense internally that she has to have financial independence, and I like that. I like that. Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, Archana and Amit, thank you for this conversation. This has been even more remarkable than we had anticipated. Thank you for sharing everything so candidly.
Thank you.
The world does need to hear these things, even if you don't think they do. But there are many, many of us who are very inspired by what you do and are looking forward to seeing your journeys ahead as well. Thank you for sharing your time and your energy with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
I want to just end with one thing, since a lot of people listening might be young couples. I think what is equally important, if not more, in this journey is this mutual respect between the couple for a perspective that is different from your own. And I'm going to call that out because our perspectives have always been different from day zero. But I think love comes and goes, but I think that respect for a perspective is critical. And then just support each other, in terms of whatever the other person is excited about. And the biggest one, have fun while you're doing it. Because I think for both Amit and me, this whole journey is just so much fun. So wanted to put that on the table as well.
I don't know how you don't speak more. I mean, I know you don't like to speak more, and my God, you're so beautiful.
I tell her that all the time.
Look at what you're saying.
No, because
at one of the companies I was on the board of, they used to ask board members to speak at the end of every board offsite, and then one year they asked the spouses to also speak. When the year that she spoke, after that, I never got invited. It was she who was speaking at all consequences.
No, I wanted to call it out because I think after whenever I speak, a lot of people come up and say two things. One is that I cannot believe, that money got transferred to give you comfort. And I think that's like just showing men another way to think, right? And the second is again...
A lot of people also say God got the man
it got
into
the
trouble.
man into trouble.
Yeah.
So actually,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Recently it happened
And
that
for us, we say it so easily because
YPO event, I
honestly,
remember.
it was at a YPO and where people came up and said, "Oh my God, can you please say this in front of my husband and whatever have you?"
Yeah.
And the second thing is really just the respect in the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Which is this: the perspectives are always going to be different.
Yeah.
We forgot to bring our ROI.
You can
Oh
please bring your
my
ROI. We will
God,
include it.
Yeah.
No, that's, this was not a philanthropy.
You know what I'm saying?
It
It's not,
was a philanthropy conference.
do not, they're going to find you for
Thank
saying
God,
that.
one conversation happened
Without you bringing it
without
back.
social ROI.
Yeah,
Thank
without
God.
bringing it back into the room. But
Thank God.
I think, therefore, since you're putting it out there, I think for the men to hear
No, it
this,
is very important.
yeah.
No, it's also very important because, and I may come off a little wrong, but in a lot of places, I've heard bad jokes even coming, and people are not even shy of saying it on your face. And that's absolutely, that shows
okay.
such a toxic mindset behind what is going on, because you have no understanding and your measurement of success is only money. So when we are seeing this conversation, it really rebels against, and it's 2025.
But you'll get that with Rohini and Nandan as well.
Oh yeah. So there are few of you, when you speak, it makes a difference. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you both do joint conversations a lot, or is it?
Amit does about 100 a month. And now that I'm invited to some, I do those 2 or 4. But I like this format where he's leading and I'm just piping in slowly, because he's so comfortable and so used to all of this. For me, it's a whole different effort scene. But I'm good with this, where boy is leading it.